Hi, I'm Kanupriya Sharma and I welcome you to this video solution for a hard evaluate OG question by GMATQuizMaster. Have you ever picked an incorrect answer choice very confidently and found yourself asking, how can this be incorrect? My logic is correct. My understanding is correct. The choice seems to be presenting the correct information. Then why is it wrong? Well, the question that we are going to discuss now is one such question in which most of the students who have attempted it found themselves asking similar questions. Why? Because the three trap incorrect answer choices here present factors that seem to be very relevant but are not. So, if you are not careful while understanding the conclusion or while evaluating the answer choices, you are very likely to fall in the trap of one of these incorrect answer choices. So, let's discuss this question and understand how to avoid that situation. Let's start with passage analysis. A certain cultivated herb is one of a group of closely related plants that thrive in soil with high concentrations of metals that are toxic to most other plants. So, we are saying that there is one cultivated herb. We are talking about one herb, and this herb is one of a group of closely related plants. Now, what are these closely related plants? What do we know about them? We know that they thrive in soil with high concentrations of metals, and this kind of soil is toxic to most other plants. So, that is what differentiates this group of plants from the other plants. So, let's understand it. Let's take a note of it. So, let's say this is this group of closely related plants. And what do we know about them? They thrive in soil with high concentration of metals. And that is what differentiates these plants from the other plants. Other plants cannot thrive in this soil. These plants can thrive in this soil. And the herb that we are talking about, let's say the herb is H, is one of these plants, which means that this herb can also thrive in soil with high concentrations of metals. Let's read further. Agronomists studying the growth of this herb have discovered that it produces large amounts of histidine, an amino acid that in test tube solutions renders these metals chemically inert. Now, what do we know from the people who are studying the growth of this herb? They have discovered that this herb, this H herb, let me remove this arrow here, herb H produces large amounts of histidine. This is a fact that we know about this herb H. And what do we know about histidine? Histidine is an amino acid, and in lab conditions, it can render these metals inactive, right? Ineffective or inactive. Chemically inert means they will no longer be active, they will no longer be able to have the kind of chemical effect that they had. And which metals are we talking about? These metals, the metals present in soil. So this is something that we know about histidine, how it acts in lab conditions. We do not know whether it acts in a similar way in soil or not. We know that this herb H produces large amounts of histidine. All right, let's read further. Hence, the herb's high histidine production must be the key feature that allows it to grow in metal rich soils. So, what is the conclusion here? This is the conclusion that the herb's high histidine production, it must be the key feature that allows it to grow in these soils. So, the important thing to understand here is this must. So the conclusion is saying that it is because of this feature this plant can survive in the toxic metal soil, right? This must be the key feature that allows it to survive in the soil. Now, understand that the conclusion uses this word must be. So it is not just saying that it can be or it can be one of the features. It is saying that it must be the key feature. It must be the main reason why the plant can survive in that kind of soil. So that is what the passage tells us. So, what is the passage logic here? The passage logic here is that this herb has been found to produce large quantities of histidine, and we know that in lab conditions, histidine can render the metals chemically inert, and that is why we have arrived at the conclusion that this histidine production is the main reason why this plant can survive in that kind of soil. There is no evidence given here which can support this conclusion, which can support the jump that we are making, that okay, if it is acting like this in the lab, it will act in a similar way in the soil. There's nothing that supports that kind of logic. So that is a logical jump here from the way the chemical acts in lab conditions. We are assuming that it will act in a similar way in the soil as well, and that is why we are concluding that the production of this amino acid must be the primary reason why this herb can survive in the soil. Another thing to note here is that this entire group of closely related plants, this entire group has this characteristic, has this ability. So, this is a common ability here. And because these are closely related plants, this common ability may be due to a common feature that all these plants have. So it is very much possible that all these plants have the same feature that enables them to thrive in soil with higher concentrations of metals. And in that case, these other plants will not possess this common feature. So if histidine production is the key reason behind this ability to survive in this kind of soil for herb edge, it is possible that this entire group of closely related plants will have the same feature, that is they will also be producing high quantities of histidine, and the other plants that cannot survive in these soils will lack this feature, that is they would not be producing high amounts of histidine. The question stem says, in evaluating the argument, it would be most important to determine which of the following. So we have to evaluate the argument, we have to evaluate the conclusion. What does that mean? We have to select an answer choice that can tell us that histidine production, yes, it must be the key feature that allows the herb to grow in metal rich soil, or no, histidine production might not be the key feature that allows this herb to grow in metal rich soil. We have to find an answer choice that can strengthen the conclusion at one extreme and weaken the conclusion on the other extreme. Let's update our bridge table. So, if your understanding of the passage logic as well as the conclusion was correct, you can have a tick here, and you can move forward. However, if you missed anything in understanding the passage, if you missed any logical aspect or you did not understand any portion of the passage or you skipped it or you rushed through it, anything, you can mark a cross here and write the exact reason why you did not understand that portion or the complete passage logic. Similarly, if you understood the correct meaning of the conclusion, you can mark a tick here. Otherwise, mark a cross here and mention exactly what went wrong. Did you not read the conclusion properly, or did you not understand like the must be aspect or something else that is given in the conclusion? Mention the exact reason here. With this, let's move to understand what the correct answer choice should convey. So, once you have understood the conclusion properly, it is very easy to understand what the correct answer choice should convey. Because this is an evaluate question, you know that the correct answer choice will bring in new information and it will strengthen and weaken the conclusion at the two extremes. That is, At one extreme, it will strengthen the conclusion and say that the herb's high histidine production must be the key feature that allows it to grow in these kinds of soils. And at the other extreme, it will weaken the conclusion that this high histidine production might not be the key feature that allows it to grow in metal rich soils. Keep in mind that the evaluate choice, the correct answer choice here, just needs to strengthen and weaken your belief. It does not need to prove that the conclusion is correct or break the conclusion completely. With that, let's proceed to answer choice analysis. Choice A, which is one of the popular incorrect answer choices, whether the herb can thrive in soil that does not have high concentrations of the toxic metals. So, this choice talks about or questions the ability of this herb to thrive in the other type of soil, that is, the soil that does not have high concentrations of toxic metals. Now, is that ability to thrive in the other types of soil relevant to understand whether histidine production might be or might not be the key feature behind the ability to survive in toxic metal soil? Can you say that? Let's say this is yes, the herb can thrive in soils that are not rich in metals. Does that mean that histidine might be the key feature, or does that mean that histidine might not be the key feature? No. So this extreme does not strengthen or weaken the conclusion here. Let's consider the other extreme, that no, the herb cannot thrive in soil that does not have high concentration of toxic metals. Again, it does not indicate whether histidine can or cannot be the key feature behind the ability to thrive in metal rich soil. So, if you selected this answer choice, you probably brought in some assumptions that what can be the impact of histidine in the other type of soil, how it can affect the growth there, or something else. And based on those assumptions, you selected the incorrect answer choice here. So, do question those assumptions. Mention the reason why you selected choice A. Did you understand the passage logic, the conclusion, what the correct answer choice needs to convey? Because that is something that many students miss in evaluate questions. And then, did you understand what choice A is conveying? Did you compare it with what the correct answer choice should convey? And accordingly update your bridge table. Let's move to choice B now. Choice B, whether others of the closely related group of plants also produce histidine in large quantities. Now, a lot of students reject this choice because it talks about the other plants in this group. They think that it is irrelevant and they reject it. However, is it really irrelevant? Let's understand. So, we know here that this herb that we are discussing is one of this group of closely related plants. It is one of these closely related plants. And these plants have a common characteristics that they thrive in soils with high concentrations of metals, and other plants cannot do that. So this entire group differs from all other plants in this common aspect. So is it not possible that they have the same reason, a common reason why they can thrive in soil with these conditions? The answer is yes. It is very much possible they are all closely related and they have that same characteristic which differentiates them from all other plants. So it is very possible that the reason behind this capability to thrive in soils with high concentration of metals is same for all of them. In that case, considering that scenario, if others of closely related group of plants, that is the other plants in this group, also produce histidine in large quantities, will it strengthen your belief in the conclusion? That is, will it make you believe in the conclusion that the herb's high histidine production must be the key feature that allows it to grow in metal-rich soils? Yes. Note that it does not prove the conclusion to be correct. It just makes you believe more in the conclusion that, okay, this entire group, which has this common characteristic that no other plant has also this another feature that they all produce high histidine, and this histidine is known to render the metals ineffective in lab conditions. Then it is possible that this high histidine production is the reason why they can survive in the soil. On the other hand, if you check the other extreme, if you say that no, the other plants do not produce high amounts of histidine, then you'll think that okay, maybe this plant is also this particular herb. It also has some other characteristic that makes all of them survive in this soil, and it is not the histidine production. So the other extreme weakens your belief in the conclusion. Again, it weakens your belief. It does not break the conclusion apart. So choice B has all the characteristics or of a correct evaluate answer choice. It brings in new information. It strengthens the conclusion at one extreme and it weakens the conclusion at the other extreme. And that is why choice B is the correct answer choice. Now, if you rejected the correct answer choice, you need to question yourself that why did you reject it? As I mentioned, that because this choice talks about the other plants, you might have thought that it is not talking about the relevant segment, and that is why you rejected it. So, that can be one reason. If you have not understood the passage properly or the conclusion properly, that can be another reason. You have to just evaluate your thought process and arrive at the exact reason why you rejected choice B, and that is what will go in your bridge table here. Let's move to choice C now. Choice C, whether the herb's high level of histidine production is associated with an unusually low level of production of some other amino acid. So this choice says that okay, we know that this herb produces high level of histidine. However, is it associated with an unusually low level of production of some other amino acid? If we say yes, it means it is associated with some kind of with low level production of some other amino acid. If we say no, then it means it is not associated with high level with low level production of any other amino acid. However, does this help? In any of these scenarios, can you say that okay, it's not the high histidine production that allows the plant to grow in those conditions, or no, it cannot be the high histidine production that allows the plant to grow in that condition? No, at any of these extremes, this choice neither strengthens nor weakens the conclusion, and that is why it is incorrect. Most likely, if you selected it, you brought in an assumption here. You considered that okay, there is a low level of amino acid too, some other amino acid, right, that is being discussed here, and you brought in an assumption that this is what affects the ability to survive in those conditions. That is not something that the choice mentions. If that had to be if you have to create an answer choice on that aspect, then the answer choice will also mention that this level of the other amino acid can help the plant grow in those conditions or it cannot help the plant grow in those conditions. Without that kind of information, just based on the level of some other amino acid, you cannot say that okay, it is what allows the plant to survive in those conditions or it is something that does not allow the plant to survive in that condition. So be very sure when you are evaluating any answer choice, you should not bring in any external assumption, any external information that connects your answer choice with the conclusion. Let's move to choice D now. Choice D, another popular answer choice. Whether growing the herb in soil with high concentrations of the metals will, over time, reduce their concentrations in the soil. So, this choice is saying that if we grow this herb in soil with high concentrations of metal, then with time, will the concentration of metal in the soil reduce? Now, this choice talks about the possible impact of growing the herb in the soil. It does not talk about the reason why that herb can survive in the soil. It talks about the impact of growing that herb in metal rich soil, right? So, is that relevant? Does it help you determine whether or not it is the histidine production that helps the herb to survive? And that is why it is very important to understand the conclusion properly. The conclusion here is that it is the histidine production that allows the plant to survive in these soils. Now, what other impact happens? What other effect takes place? What is the impact on the soil? Or how is it that histidine is helping the plant grow is not relevant here. It does not make you believe more or less in this cause and effect that has been presented in the conclusion. And that is why you got the answer choice incorrect. So if you marked this answer choice incorrect, either your passage understanding was not correct or the conclusion that you were trying to evaluate was not clear to you. That what is it that the conclusion is saying? What relationship is the conclusion discussing? What things the correct answer choice should ask you? How can it strengthen the conclusion? How can it weaken the conclusion that was not clear to you? With that, let's move to choice E. Choice E, whether the concentration of histidine in the growing herb declines as the plant approaches maturity. So, this choice is saying it talks about the variation in concentration of histidine with the plant age. It may be relevant, so let's evaluate it. Let's say yes, the concentration of histidine in the growing herb declines as the plant approaches maturity. That means that when the plant has grown enough, it has matured enough, then the level of histidine will reduce. So maybe histidine was something that was helping it grow in that soil. Okay, so this kind of strengthens the conclusion that histidine, high production of histidine may be the reason. However, what if we say no? Will it weaken the conclusion? If we say no, the concentration of histidine in the growing herb does not decline as the plant approaches maturity. Then, does it mean that the herb's high histidine production might not be the key feature that allows it to grow in metal rich soils? The answer is no, it does not weaken the conclusion here. Does not weaken. So, this choice kind of strengthens the conclusion at one's extreme, but it does not weaken the conclusion at the other extreme. And therefore, even though it may seem relevant, it is not. The variation in concentration of histidine cannot help us decide whether or not high production of histidine is the key feature that allows it to survive in that soil. And that is why this answer choice is incorrect. Now, if you selected this answer choice, then yes, passage, logic, conclusion, understanding what the correct answer choice needs to convey, you may have faltered in any of these, and you can go back to your bridge table to understand where all you have faltered. If you have faltered anywhere in these three, then definitely your answer choice analysis will be impacted. If all this was correct, then you did not evaluate the choice properly. Either you did not understand its meaning, or you did not check, you did not align it with what the correct answer choice should say. That is, you did not check that does it strengthen the conclusion at one extreme and weaken it at the other extreme. You just check the first scenario, okay, it seems to be strengthening the conclusion at one extreme, so it can be correct. You stopped there, and that is where you faltered. You did not check that it should also weaken the conclusion at the other extreme. So please update your bridge table accordingly. So we have solved this question together, and you have your bridge table updated for this question. I hope you will be able to update your error log. Also, I hope in every other question that you solve, you will understand the passage properly, understand the conclusion properly, understand what the correct answer choice should convey, and then move on to evaluate the answer choices. And while doing that, understand what the answer choice says and align it with what the correct answer choice should say. All of this together will help you get to the correct answer. Good luck.